welcome back to Parenting Unpacked. You're here with Dr. Siobhan Kennedy Costantini. Say hi, Siobhan.
Hiya.
And Dr. Kristen Summer. So today we're doing the episode we planned on doing last week, but we got distracted last week. But before we get to that, Siobhan, it's kind of something I want to talk to you about because it kind of occurred to me. I've been on my platform for a while saying that parenting shouldn't be paywalled. And I recently made all my content free. So I made it free because I have a full-time job, so I don't need to cover my mortgage. And I do ads, which cover my expenses on my socials and I guess sometimes cover some of my time, if I get a decent ad. But I realized that in saying that, I might be at odds or making people feel like I'm offending other parenting educators who charge for their time and services. And you are one of those people. So I don't target people who are parenting educators. I probably should communicate better, saying that because I don't have to pay my mortgage with my social business, that's why I make my content free, so that I can distribute my content to everyone, so that there's no barriers to access for the people who actually need it most, which are generally high risk people. But how do you feel when you see something like that come from me? I mean, we talk all the time. We're both doing similar stuff. How do you feel when you hear me say parenting shouldn't be paywalled? As a parenting educator who obviously needs to pay their mortgage with their business. Tell me about it.
Yeah, of course. I was thinking about this exact thing because we haven't spoken about it to each other before, but I saw your thing recently about how it shouldn't be paywalled, and I was like, yeah, it shouldn't. I was like, shit, I charge for my thing. And then I went, how do I feel about that? And I went, I'm fine with it. She's not talking about me. She's talking about her stuff. And yeah, I don't have a other job. This is my job.
Yeah.
I don't do it full time. I work 3 days a week, and I'm full-time mum duty the other 2 days. And yeah, I do need to cover costs, and there are costs associated with things. Obviously, there's paying for my website, paying for for my sensory classes. I obviously charge. People come. There's cost covered in terms of materials, content, printouts. Hall hire, and then for the things that I do charge for are my fact packs. So those those required and continually require, because I update them regularly, so much time and effort. They're over 30 plus pages of heavily researched information, not only from my 15 years in academia, but also the content is specifically researched, and I've spent easily 3 or 4 weeks worth of work on each one. So yeah, no, I don't feel bad about it at all. I don't see, I think we do different things, which we do, and a lot of my income comes from more professional services, insofar as I do consultancy work to NGOs and government organizations.
Yeah.
So that is a bit different. Obviously I price my things differently for different people.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. And I think there's something to be said for the way that we kind of interplay with each other. Now that I have a full-time job. So last year when I didn't have a full-time job and I wasn't sure if I was going to have a job at all, was charging for my services. I was running groups and things like that and charging for them because I needed to make ends meet with my family. And now that I have a full-time job, that pressure's been taken off. But it also means that I now don't have time for those consultations and stuff like that. So when people slide into my DMs or into my website asking if they can do a consultation, I often send them to you, Siobhan, because if they want to pay and would like to get that one-on-one time, that is a luxury, that is a privilege that they can pay for, and it goes through someone who, like you, who has the time and the brain space to do it. I don't provide extensive content for free because I don't have the time to do it, and it comes out really slowly. Whereas you are constantly like bringing out new stuff. You have like very like well-researched posts that go up once like every 3 days. You do 3 times a week. Whereas my TikTok content is chaotic. My Instagram stuff barely ever goes up, but it's because I'm juggling my science communication, social business with my full-time job. So I think we do different things, and you kind of get what you pay for, in the respect that if you want someone who can work side by side with you, you can get that, but there is at least evidence-based science coming for the people that can't afford it through me. So like I am bringing evidence straight to you that was published this year, rather than like waiting 17 years for it to get enacted in policy. You get it in your hands right away. And I mean, you do that too. So you don't actually charge for all of your content. You do a lot of free content. Like,
I have a lot of free content.
And I think that's really what's beautiful about the parenting space. Like, we're all saying parenting shouldn't be paywalled. It's just that if you want more, you can pay for it.
Yeah, more in-depth.
Because, there's lots of people that do this. Like, Big Little Feelings is, like, one of the, like, biggest Instagram, like, toddler kind of educators, right? Like, they teach you how to parent your toddlers in a respectful way. It's kind of gentle parenting, but authoritative parenting. It's Dan Siegel style stuff. But they sell like their toddler course, and I think that's it. And that's like their income, but they provide so much of that course in their free content that parents can actually just use the free Instagram content to guide their parenting. And then if you want something that's more in depth, more thorough, you can pay for it. And I think that's really beautiful. And that's something that social media has done for parental education as a whole. Has made this whole this idea that parenting shouldn't be paywalled happen. Like, there is a lot of stuff now available to people, and all you need is access to a device, and almost everybody has access to a device in a developed country, and thus has the ability
and time to filter through it.
Yes,
I think that's like a big thing that the benefits of courses and these kinds of things, or even fact facts, is that it's a topic is condensed into a specific thing. So, I mean, I have a lot of the content from my fact facts is littered throughout my Instagram page. But if you need, and one thing that lots of new parents don't have is time.
Yes.
But even if I made it having it all in one place is a better place to go. And then I guess as well, like, different people process information differently. So I have had quite a few people reach out and ask for me to do an online course version of my fact facts, which I'm going to do, and it's in the works in the coming months to do. Yeah. But it's funny because that is not my preferred style of learning. Like, I would rather get a fact fact and read through PDFs of stuff.
I would
and like I think exactly. And so I think I've forgotten to take into account that lots of people like to do things differently, which, you know, is kind of my whole spiel. But so I'm going to start doing online things. And the good thing about that is that there will be like Q&A, and like, as you say, it's personalized. So there'll be Q&A elements, or there'll be opportunities to reach out, because definitely for you and your TikTok, and like as my Instagram has blown up in the last few months, like I cannot reply in depth to the DMs that I get. Like, people send me DMs and want information about how they should or shouldn't put their baby to sleep, and I'm like, I don't have enough information about you and your situation to tell you what's the right choice. I mean, like, I just don't have the time to do that. So and also do all the other work that I need to pay the bills. So that's where paid work comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, we have different like monetizing like structures too. Like, I went the ad route because I had such a huge following that I could just use ads to fund me. But a lot of people start very small and stay very small as creators, which is, you know, it means you've got a curated feed, and it means you've got like a really close-knit community of people. But that kind of precludes you from advertising. And we obviously do things really differently. But I think that the end goal is the same. We provide a level of free content to parents that need it, and then we add stuff on top. So it was just a weird thought I was having as I was like like standing on my soapbox saying parenting shouldn't be paywalled. All my stuff is now free, and I was like, oh, what am I doing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Does it sound like I'm undercutting other people? Because it's not. It's just
no, not at all.
Yeah,
it's what works for you.
Yeah,
totally. And I think that's a really important. Like, obviously, we talk about this when it comes to our children and our children's development, is that you do what works for you. And I think one thing that's really important about that philosophy is it should be applied to all aspects of life. You're doing what works for you. Yes. I'm doing what works for me. Yes. What works for you doesn't work for me, and that's cool. Everyone's doing their own thing, and it's not a personal assault on our individual choices. And I don't take it as such. Yeah. I actually, this is probably a great topic to just share our own thoughts and feelings about. Like, obviously, we didn't join this parenting space until we had children of our own. I know that this was never really your intention to become a TikTok sensation. It was never my plan to do this either. So maybe we can kind of share our stories of how we first started engaging with parenting content, and like what kind of prompted us to jump in.
This is, again, not the episode we planned on recording. We are really bad at this.
Definitely not. Last episode was not what we planned. This one's not what we planned, but let's go with the flow.
Okay, well, your journey actually started before mine. You've been doing this for a lot longer than I have. So I think you probably kind of alluded to how this all happened in episode 2.
I think so, yeah, we touched on it.
4. Because episode 2 was introduction to Siobhan and her journey, and then episode 4 was her postpartum depression and anxiety journey. But yeah, do you want to give me a little bit more of an insight into how you got to where you are, why you decided to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we all know, Google follows our every move at all times, always, and all our devices are listening to us. I kind of say that half seriously. I don't know what China / Google / Elon is or is not doing, but I assume it's bad.
They're listening.
Everything. Anyway, so as soon as I got married, Google knew that I had been married, and then they're like, right, you're a young woman who's of childbearing age. You just got married. Time to spam you with baby things. So my Instagram quickly became very pregnancy and parent oriented. So I started getting, just in my own personal Instagram, lots of content about these things. And so I clicked on things that were interesting. And then as in the wee hours of having a little one, at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you've been startled awake by a screaming baby, your brain is wired. So you reach for your phone either to stay awake or to do something to pass the time while a parasite's sucking at your chest, to just kind of stay awake. So I was scrolling through, and same thing, just getting interested and or outraged at the poorly researched information that was out there. And then getting feverishly into the comments going, actually, I think you'll find that a study... So lots of that stuff. And then, yes, as we kind of touched on, I had postnatal depression and anxiety. And really, I started my business as a way to... Well, at the beginning, it wasn't a business. It was just an Instagram account. It was a way to funnel my energies. I was so consumed with anxiety and just the intensity of my experience that having an outlet of any kind was beneficial. So it was a way to translate all of the stuff that I was learning as a new mother, or all of the stuff that I already knew through my child development stuff, and then was revisiting through the lens of early parenthood, and then sharing it in that way. So when my son was 6 months old, my mother-in-law would come over for a few hours a couple of times a week and watch him, and I would research and write posts on Instagram, mostly as a way to give me a break, because everyone was very worried about me because I was very unwell.
Yes.
And it was a way to focus my energies. And so, to begin with, it was just a little fun hobby project of, I know a lot about insert X topic, I will write a little post on it. And I think coming from academia, where everything you write is so heavily edited, rewritten, reposted, re-frameworked, like and we both work with big teams. So papers I would write would have to be reviewed by 12 other people. And by the time it got to the last person, the paragraph that I was really proud of had been completely rewritten.
Yeah.
I was like, but it was such a beautiful paragraph. So to be honest, a huge motivating factor was I get to write the paragraph that I want, and I just get to put it out there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be edited, and it doesn't have to, like, it was still good quality
Doesn't get
stuff. It was
picked
well
over.
researched.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't get picked over. It doesn't get told, actually, I think you'll find that you need a comma here, and it's very important. I'm like, I don't bloody well need a comma. So yeah, it was super liberating just to write something and then publish it.
Ta-da! And it like immediately
Instead of
goes to
waiting
the
6
people.
years.
And
Exactly.
doesn't get
Instead of
caught
like,
behind a
yeah,
paywall.
literally.
Like all my work.
Exactly. So no, it was super liberating to write something and put it out there rather than, thankfully, a lot of the papers at the time that I was writing have since been published. They are behind a paywall, but there were papers that one got published this year that I've been working on since 2012.
Oh.
So
That's a long time.
It was so wonderful to write something, and 10 minutes later it was out there for everyone to read.
And Siobhan, where can people access this? Can they access this on your website?
Oh, so all of my stuff was Instagram to begin with.
No,
and I also found it.
The paper that you got published this year.
Oh, the papers. It might have been the end of last year, to be fair. So it's a meta-analysis on. Actually, you kind of talked about it.
I would have.
In.
I teach it.
Oh no, but yes, of course. But thank you. You talked about it in. What was I? Hold up. I had a total mind blank. I have no idea what I was about to say. Could you share something fun with us?
Well, Siobhan, I just wanted to know if you know how on my website I put all my publications on there, and I will until someone yells at me not to. Do you also have your publications on there, or do you not have any of your scientific
I
publications?
don't have them on my website.
Siobhan.
That would be a great idea. That's a great thing. I know. I used to on my old website.
On your academic website. But there's an academic website.
Yes,
and
which
there's a social website. Like I only have one.
I know.
I just have a social website because I don't need multiple websites.
Here we go.
But yeah.
No, exactly. Here we go. So the paper it was published in December. Does neonatal imitation exist? Insights from a meta-analysis of 336 effect sizes. So this is a paper, like I said, been working on for forever, and it.
John wrote that one.
It only recently got published. Yeah.
Yes,
John
I
and,
taught it last
and
year
Jack.
in my developmental psych.
So this actually, what I was going to say, what I blanked on, was that you kind of talked, in one of your TikToks about the file draw effect.
Yes.
So this idea that a lot of things don't get published because they don't have significant findings. So when it comes to research, like all human systems, it's a broken system.
So broken.
And there are problems with it, one of which is it's very difficult to demonstrate a negative effect. So the best example is
Not
black
null.
swans.
Just null.
Null,
Negative
correct.
you can publish.
So, yes, this is true. So when it comes to, like, a good example is in England, I think, like, there are no black swans. So people say there are no black swans don't exist.
Yeah.
And you only need one example of seeing a black swan to demonstrate that black swans exist. But just because you haven't ever seen a black swan doesn't mean black swans don't exist. So just because you don't observe a finding doesn't mean the opposite of that finding is true. So in our research, we had established we felt conclusively that neonatal imitation, so babies in the first few days and weeks of life, didn't imitate facial expressions as had previously been published in the 70s. And we thought our research was quite convincing. Others in the area did not. And so I remember being in the meetings, we had a big sit back and went, okay, maybe we are wrong. If we are wrong, how could we demonstrate it? If we're not wrong, how could we let's think about this scientifically. What could we do to find the truth? And then we were thinking about the fact that for our work, we had sat on it for a long time because we'd spent a long time trying to find evidence of imitation because we figured that everyone else has done it, why can't we? And then we thought, well, how many other people have been doing this? Like, are there lots of people who've tried to run these studies, didn't get the results they were expecting, and then went, oh, okay, we must have done something wrong. and then put it in their file drawer, like close the door, and it just sits there, never gets published. So we reached out to dozens and dozens of researchers all over the world and got a lot of their studies back. A lot of them had tried to replicate the findings and got the same results as us, but because they got unexpected results and because they got null findings, as in they didn't find evidence of imitation, they either didn't try to publish or couldn't get it published. So a meta-analysis is where you combine the results of many, many different studies, in our case 366 different experiments, and we found that it was highly likely that the results of imitation research indicates that it's a small biased sample is pushing the effect. So the people who do observe it are, it's uncommon to observe the effect, and it's only the people who observe the effect that get published, or what's known as publication bias.
Mm-hmm. And to really simplify statistics for you, when we run a statistical analysis, when we say that there's a significant difference, we say it with 95% confidence that like babies will imitate from birth. But there is 5% non-confidence. And that 5%, so if we run 100 studies, 5 of those are going to pull a like sporadic incorrect effect. So if you have 100 studies and only 5 of them find a difference, it's possible
and if
that
those 5 get published,
but the others don't. All of a sudden, you're observing an effect that isn't actually true, because that's how statistics works. Because the other
getting
95,
an inflated sense of things.
Yeah, the bottom of the iceberg. So you've got the top of the iceberg that like is misleading, and then you've got the bottom of the iceberg saying, no, there's more to it than that. So yeah, that's kind of how stats works, and it's really annoying. And this is not great for parents to hear. But this is why there's so much grey in science, and why you can take the information, but also go, this doesn't work for my family, or why we're constantly changing. It's why like we've changed from authoritarian to authoritative as the preferred parenting style, and all these different kinds of things. People are always like, well, this was this and now it's not. Like, how do you know, like, it's not reliable? And it's like, no, we're forever like improving our science,
learning and changing.
Yeah. And like science has improved a lot in the last, especially in psychology, science has improved and changed its methods a lot since the 70s, when a lot of this like seminal work emerged, to the point where like back in the 70s they test like 10 babies and be like, here is the effect, and like now we know that that is not enough babies, like not even a little bit. And that is like, that increases the likelihood of pulling that like erroneous 5% and all these kinds of things. So anyways, that was it. Like, we are really bad at recording today. We just keep going on really random bends.
We're very good at recording topics we weren't intending to record.
Yes. Anyways,
it's okay.
That's how you got to where you are, Siobhan. How I got to where
Yes.
I am.
What a tangent.
Let's hit how I ended up becoming a viral TikTok doc. I had massive postnatal anxiety, and as part of my personality, my innate tendencies, whatever you want to call it, I am a rule follower. If something is said that you must do this, and it's by like a government body, a like medical institution, things like that, my brain is like, we have to do that. Or even anyone that's really knowledgeable, my brain is like, we have to do that, we can't do anything else. And so I was like all for like safe infant sleep, like, baby-led weaning. I don't know, like sleep training was a prolific messaging that I got from the government and the midwives. And so my brain was like, we've got to do this. But then my brain was also like, but I have so much scientific evidence saying the contrary to this. What is happening? So my entire introduction to parenthood was me like fighting in my own brain between what like all the like expert bodies were saying, and then like what my own expertise and decade of education was telling me. And it was a mess. And then like you have social media come in and do all sorts of other shitty things. And I ended up putting up a video on TikTok one day, just being like, here's some of the crazy things I do as a mum with a PhD in child development. One of them being, now I was not in a good headspace when I started on TikTok. And I have since changed my messaging entirely. But that first very viral parenting video was, I bed share. I don't sleep train because it's learned helplessness. And I don't remember what the last one was because I asked my child if she's making a good or bad decision, rather than telling her that she's naughty or telling her that she is bad. And it blew the fuck up. Like it blew up so fast. And people were furious, like, because I was a creator with no following at the point, but I was like creating a following as it was blowing up. People were like emailing my boss asking her to fire me because I was encouraging bed sharing. People were furious about what I said about sleep training. And it took me a little while. I've only been on TikTok for 6 months. I've only been creating for a little while. But I was listening to how my videos and the way that I was communicating my message to my audience was affecting them. So every time someone said, "This makes me feel guilty," I took that to heart and I was like, how do I change my messaging? So I started off as this like reasonably controversial person. I'm still occasionally controversial because I don't script anything and say stupid shit sometimes. But for the most part, I am very balanced and very kind. So I still believe that the technicality of what I said is true, that sleep training has a component of learned helplessness, but I know that that saying that terminology harms parents, because learned helplessness is a behaviorism term that means something entirely different to how it provokes an emotion in a parent. Like saying learned helplessness to you as a scientist is like, oh yeah, that's just that it means that the child now.
Yeah, I have the background of.
Yeah.
I have the background of all of the behaviorism of the Skinner box. Like I know the decades of research that term is based on.
Yeah, and that's where I was coming from. I wasn't saying F you if you sleep train, you're like punishing your child and it's learned helplessness. I wasn't saying that. I was like, I'm a scientist and here's a scientific concept. And I didn't realize that saying it in that way would harm parents. And I should have. I definitely should have known that, but I didn't. And I have definitely learnt over time how to deliver my messaging in a way that isn't sciencey if it's going to be harmful as language to parents. So I change terms. I really think about the semantics of what I'm saying so that parents only ever feel empowered. But yeah, my early content, which if you scroll back on my feed is still there, but like they don't get circulated at all anymore, which is great because it definitely made some parents feel like feel awful for sleep training when they shouldn't. Like, one, if you sleep trained, you probably did it for a good reason or because you were feeling bullied into it by the norms of our society, and neither of those things are your fault, and your child is going to be okay because you are working on being a responsive, caring parent in every other area. And as we spoke about in the attachment episode, your pattern of responding is what creates a secure attachment and a healthy, happy, emotional adult. It is not the one parenting choice you made. It's a pattern of responding. But anyway, so that is where my TikTok platform came from. Siobhan, you kind of started out perfectly, I guess. You started out always communicating.
First inaccurate, but also thank you.
Well, you started out communicating in a really unbiased way. You seem to have this real natural way of making everyone feel safe and comforted and supported, and that's something I had to learn through feedback. And it's been amazing that my audience has really stuck around and has supported me in learning, and like the fact that they give me criticism is amazing because it's usually done in a really kind way. Sometimes it's really rude, but generally it's not, and it really helps me. So you seem to be a natural at it. I'm learning slowly, but yeah.
No, I mean, I had to learn too. I think the real, and we've touched on this in previous episodes, but my introduction to child development and parenting before I became a parent was I have worked with thousands and thousands of parents of newborn babies.
Yeah.
So I would do home visits. So not in the lab. I mean, there's benefits to doing research in the lab, but when you visit people in their homes, you get a more cohesive and comprehensive picture of what life with a young baby looks like. And lots of these parents I visited multiple times over the first few months of their baby's life. So I didn't get a single snapshot of what this looked like. So I was very, very, very lucky and super privileged to see the real challenges day to day of what parenting looks like. And I got to see the parents who, I got to see all kinds of parenting styles. I got to see parents who were really, really responsive. I got to see parents who were less responsive. I got to see parents who were very fixated on establishing a routine. I got to see parents who were very go with the flow. And really, I noticed through all these different ways of doing things that, everyone is just trying their best, that they all love their children and they're trying to figure out what is best for them, for their family, and how they can make it work. And then also from a more practical side of things, I saw that there was no one right way to do things. There were, as I said, parents who were really strict on following a routine, and sometimes they had babies who followed a routine. Likewise, parents who were really strict on following a routine and they had a baby who did not follow that routine at all. And then parents who would go with the flow and they had happy go with the flow babies, and then parents who would go with the flow and they had a happy babies that followed a really strict routine. So I noticed very early that so much of parenting was baby-led, and that as parents, we just try to figure out what the hell's going on as it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think I was so fortunate that from my early 20s onwards, I got a firsthand viewing of how very different it can be, and that there's no one right way to do things.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think I thought that I knew what I was doing because I'd spent so much time with toddlers, but your experience with years and years of working with newborns has shaped the way you interact with parents, I think, way more than my way has. Because when you get to a toddler, they tend to be far more consistent. They tend to have they kind of even out a bit. And as you grow, humans become more homogenous. Yeah. I don't know what the right term is, but they can become more consistent and they become easier to predict, and advice kind of applies to more of them. But in those early days of the newborn, it is anything but that. So I wasn't prepared for that chaos. I knew about temperaments and stuff, but I didn't understand the chaos of it with a brand new baby, because I have experience with thousands of toddlers and how that interacts. And I understand that toddlers are a little bit different, but they are nothing compared to newborn babies. So yeah, it's very interesting to see that contrasting, we're both experts in our respective age groups. They just happen to be a couple of years apart, and that makes all the difference in understanding parents and babies and things like that. And yeah, this is interesting. And I think one of the big takeaways I think you should take from this random conversation that we're having is that sometimes terminology in science can be really scary. So when someone is bringing out a scientific term, when the media is talking about it, it's often being misrepresented or misinterpreted, because scientific terms aren't concerned with public relations.
How do you feel about it?
They don't care about image. It's just we have to use the term that is the clearest one to communicate the concept in scientific literature. But when it comes to parents hearing those words, it can have an entirely different experience, and that's something I learned in this whole approach to science communication. So science communication is a professional job for a lot of people, and it's a skill that we curate over time. Some people are naturals at it, some people aren't. So when you are consuming content from scientists or from the sciences, know that sometimes a word doesn't mean what you think it means, or the feeling it evokes. That's it's a bit more tricky. So yeah, there's not really a solution to that though, because science communication is hard.
Yeah, I mean, a great example, I completely agree with everything you just said. A great example is when it comes to terms for temperament, right? So the idea of temperament and the terms were created in the 50s.
Yeah.
So often it's the technical terms of temperament are easy and difficult.
Yes.
So it is not very kind or even necessarily appropriate to tell a parent that their child is easy or difficult.
Yes.
That's not helpful. When we come at it from a scientific understanding, we know they're just using that word label to be a catch-all to explain all these underlying characteristics. But one thing that I think like the parents have really done beautifully, this community around highly spirited children have recaptured the term difficult and phrased it as energetic or slow or what is it, highly spirited, or do you know of the other words that they use to
Awkward and highly sensitive.
Yes, orchid.
Orchid's
Yes,
like
that's
the
great.
fancy
Dandelions and
term.
orchids.
Yeah.
So orchid as in like the flower, an orchid, requires a lot more tender loving care. It's more easily influenced by its environment. It's more likely to negatively experience extremes of heat, etc. So children who, using the science term of difficult temperament, are often described as orchids because they're more easily affected by outside factors. And then a dandelion, which is a very sturdy, well, internal factors, that's true. A dandelion is a much more sturdy, less affected plant. So that's kind of a more appropriate or more gentle way to describe the terms. But so that's just a really good example. And also I think it's great that it's being co-opted and rebranded, as it were. Because, children are not easy or difficult. All children are difficult in that parenting children is a challenge. But there's just different characteristics.
All I'm thinking about right now is easy peasy lemon squeezy, or difficult. That's saying.
Pretty much.
All children are difficult. But we know from science that semantics, words, actually really matter. So a child who is called difficult can sometimes embody that. And I think it was Scientific Mummy made a post, like an Instagram post the other day, of a really cool study where they had 3 different ways of explaining that girls and boys are equivalent in their math abilities. So the phrases were girls are just as good as boys at math, or girls and boys are equally good at math, or boys are just as good as girls at math. Now, when children, boys and girls, were told the first one, girls are just as good as boys at math, the children thought that girls weren't naturally gifted at math, but boys were. When they were given boys and girls are equally good at math, that gender bias was reduced, so they were more likely to think that girls also had a natural capacity for math. But then when they did the boys are just as good as girls at math, that gender bias disappeared. It didn't reverse, but all of a sudden both boys and girls were thought to be naturally inclined to be good at math. And just simple semantics like that, the way we phrase things, the way we talk about things really matters. And people are always dropping in my comments being like, it's just semantics, it doesn't matter. Like when I was critiquing the gentle parenting phrases and things like that, they're like, it's semantics, what's the difference? And it's like, there's a big difference. It doesn't
semantics matter.
Yeah, they really matter, because language is how we shape our cognition. It's the way our brain thinks, it's how it communicates. So when you give it a certain type of messaging, even if it's just a single word, people take it for face value. They don't unpack it and go, what are the parallels here? What are the other words we can use? They take it for what it is. And semantics really matter, whether you're a child or an adult, a parent or a non-parent. Semantics matter.
Absolutely. The best study, so the seminal study that describes the idea that semantics matter is a study by Elizabeth Loftus in the 70s or 80s. I can't remember. You will know this one. That they had undergrad students observe a car accident, and the way they described it influenced how severe they rated the accident as having been. So they either said car A bumped into car B, car A hit car B, or car A smashed into car B. So the more severe the word was, the more severe they rated the accident as having been.
Wow.
And even though they all saw the same accident, the content of the information was exactly the same, but how it was framed, the words used to shape the ideas influenced how those ideas solidified. And that's just, that's been such a replicated effect. And we don't need studies to know this. We know that how we describe things to ourselves and to each other influences the way we think about them.
Rad. Well, we're going to leave on that message, because I think it's true. Semantics matter. Words shape ideas, shape the way you see the world, and that's really important when you're taking this into account with your child, because they are social learners. They listen and they learn from you primarily, So just kind of carry that with you in your parenting journey and know that if you stuff up, it's okay. You can continually change your language. It's okay. But Siobhan, do you have, because we need to finish, we've gone over time, do you have a magic moment or a meltdown moment for me this week?
Let's go with a magic moment. So Timo's language, speaking on language, has really, it's always been good. He's got very good language for his age, which is awesome. But the other day he likes to recount his day in bed. And so we'll be padding and he'll be falling asleep, and then he'll roll over and tell me something. And he'll be like, yes. And then that happens about 15 different times. But the first time that it happened of this particular night, he rolled over and went, excavator, truck, love them, exciting. And my heart just exploded because I know how much he loves them, but it's been the first time he's really expressed just his love for machinery in words. And it was just so precious to see the joy and pride that he has in talking and learning about excavators, harvesters, trucks, bulldozers, diggers, all of those fun things.
Oh, that's so cute. I mean, we all love a good excavator, don't we, as toddler parents?
Yep.
They are exciting. We love them. Because it means that our child isn't yelling at us for 5 minutes while they watch them. So yeah, that is magic. I have a magic moment this week, and it's got to do with my child's development, because as a dev psych, I just get so excited when she develops in some kind of way. So time is a really abstract concept, and it's really hard for kids to learn, and they don't really start to get a good grasp of what's yesterday, what's tomorrow, what's next week, what's next year, and the distance between them until they're 7 or something. And so I know this, and I know that when I say these words to her, she doesn't necessarily understand them. When I'm like, we can't get your bunny from kindy right now, but we can get it tomorrow. And she'll be like, and it's a massive meltdown for 30 seconds. And then she's like, okay, I've forgotten. But now she started doing this thing where I'll say tomorrow and she'll say later. She'll be like, I'll get it later. And I'll say, yeah, we can do that after your nap. And she'll say later. And she'll start repeating it back to me. We can go and get the bunny later. So she hasn't really grasped when that is.
Full concept.
But she does know that it is in the future. And that she can trust that I will get it for her, because I always, if I tell her that she can have something tomorrow or the next day, I'm not doing it to stop her or placate her. I'm doing it because I will give her that thing. We just can't have it now. And I feel like that's really important, reinforcing that I will always follow through on my word. I'm not just doing it to placate you. It's kind of like a cop out in parenting to say we can have it later and not give it to them, and then they just learn not to trust that you're ever going to give it to them. It's the easier way to parent, to be like, you can have it later, and then not do it, than to be like, you can't have that, and here's why, because that's more likely to give you a tantrum. But yeah, she's now grasped this concept of this will happen in the future. It'll happen later. She doesn't know how far away later is because she's 2, and there's a really cool study about how kids map where next week is relative to next year. They're so much closer than right now. Whereas adults are much more cognizant of how far away everything is. But yeah, it's really cool. It's starting to reflect that she's really grasping this abstract concept of
getting
time.
A concept,
and that's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and I mean we should do a topic on that one time. We've got so many of our colleagues do research into foresight and how toddlers and preschoolers develop understandings of future and past.
It's one of the biggest themes in our lab that we were raised in as little PhDs.
Yeah.
We really should do a topic, or make someone come along onto the podcast to do it. That's hilarious.
Absolutely.
But anyways, do you have a meltdown moment?
We'll save that for a future episode.
We will.
No, not really. We've had a good couple of weeks. And days, weeks. Who am I saying? I have no idea what happened last week. We've had a good couple of days.
Yeah, we just don't, I don't know, meltdowns are really hard now. I don't want, guys, our kids have meltdowns, lots of them every day.
Yeah.
It's very normal, but there's just nothing notable to report anymore. It's all blending in together.
We're in a good split. Let's touch lots of wood.
Yeah, I probably need to write them down. We probably do have lots of meltdowns. I just forget to write them down. Nothing stays in my brain anymore. It has to all be written down.
Yep. I mean, you've just started a new job and you're about to move house. So yeah, I can imagine that nothing is in your brain right now.
There is nothing here. The mental load is overloaded and now I'm empty, just blank. But anyways,
Well,
good rambling.
on that note, go rest, fill the brain up with some happiness,
All right.
and we'll see you guys next time.
Next week. Bye.
Bye.